I couldn't find a parking place.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, been busy. Heck.
Good evening. How's everybody? Before we get started, I would like to ask those of you that are in the doorway to just move out into the hallway. We've got a fire capacity of 95, and I know we're well beyond that. We can't block the doorways. So if you're standing in the doorway, you can still see in, but I'd ask you to move out into the hallway and not block the doorway, please. Thank you. All right, with that, Diane will give the invocation.
I prepared some of these remarks last month, and we didn't end up meeting close to Martin Luther King Day, but I thought that they might be appropriate to share tonight, and they are some of his most famous quotes on leadership. So let's just spend a couple moments reflecting on these for ourselves. Whatever your life's work is, do it well. A man should do his job so well that the living, the dead, and the unborn could do it no better. So Lord, may we be that kind of public servant. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. And may we have the courage to stand for what is right. We may have come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. And may we all look at the citizens of our city as in the same boat as we are. There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor politic nor popular, but he must take it because conscience tells him it is right. And may we be brave enough to do that. An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. So as we come to the meeting tonight, Lord, may we concern ourselves with things that affect everyone, not just ourselves, not just our neighbors, but all of those whom we govern, all of those whom we serve. We thank you for the privilege of being in this position. Help us to serve well. Amen.
We have two students
Got two students from
from
Eisenhower.
Thank you. Come on up.
Good.
You want to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right. Here. Ready? Go ahead.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn this off here. All right, with that, we will start with the approval of the minutes from the January 3rd meeting. Those were presented. Are there any corrections? If not, is there a motion to approve them as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you. All right, so tonight we have two presentations. The first is by Mr. Ed Rodriguez regarding the driving privilege card program. Before I call Ed up, I'd just like to draw your all attention. I passed out some information. Tomorrow, Senate Bill 248, at 9 a.m., there will be a hearing in room 223 introducing the bill that we're going to discuss tonight. This bill has been authored by three senators, state senators, 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat, and co-authored by 5 others, 4 Republicans and 1 Democrat. And instead of me trying to explain driving privilege cards, I'm going to have Ed come up and talk about the program and then take your questions. But what we're basically wanting is to get information tonight about the program, and then probably at our next meeting, I'd ask you to consider passing a resolution in support of this to try and get this passed down at the state. So with that, Ed, you want to come up?
Mr. Mayor, Counselor, is this on?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Mayor, Counselor, worthy treasurer, members of the Warsaw City Council, La Voz Unida, Cosecha Indiana, and the general public. I come here on behalf of La Voz Unida. Vengo esta noche representando a La Voz Unida, and for all of those in my city and yours, and from corner to corner of this great state, for those people who live in fear and anxiety daily because they must drive and they know that it is illegal. The undocumented and those that are not able to comply with the current BMV requirements to obtain a state-issued identification card or a driver's license have real needs, like you and I. These folks, they need to work to feed and clothe and shelter their families. Their children need to go to school, and on occasion, they need to seek medical aid. We enjoy the luxury of being able to use the local resources, such as our wonderful libraries. They cannot, because they do not have a form of identification to prove who they are. This evening, La Voz Unida requests that you please consider a resolution from the City of Warsaw in support of Bill Proposal number 248. This has been under committee investigation this past summer, and as Mayor Joe said, will reconvene again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in Indianapolis. This proposal has been in the works for years and fails due to what the legislative body considers a lack of support. For the first time, it is now a bipartisan effort. Senator Blake Dorio of Goshen, a Republican, Senator David Degowski of South Bend, a Democrat, and now Senator Linda Rogers of Granger, another Republican, are co-sponsoring this bill. The proposal that we're talking about is to be voted on, we believe, in the first quarter of 2023. La Voz Unida has been working to meet with senators and representatives across northern Indiana to ask for their support and advocacy. With their busy schedules, it has been a struggle to present to them. And we've now taken the approach of asking leaders such as yourselves to provide us with this type of a resolution that will serve as a symbol of the support and advocacy that the City of Warsaw offers to the proposal that is now known as the Driving Privilege Card Program. As we move into the packets that La Voz Unida has prepared for you, I will be talking about some of the documents in depth and then just kind of touch upon some of the others. The first document, Safer Roads, A Stronger Indiana, is a very well-written description of the proposal in an easy-to-read format. The second, the fact sheet, is a quick reference and bullet point sheet that explains things pretty clearly. Now, both of these documents have been prepared by the students at the University of Notre Dame who are working diligently to get this proposal to become a law. The third document is an article from the National Conference of State Legislators that does a tremendous job of enlisting the details of the current states that have already adopted this program into law. Now, I need to mention one thing. There's one state that's missing. Last week, the great state of Minnesota passed this proposal into law. The fourth document was prepared by one of the members of La Voz Unida, Lilia Figueroa, that really is the heart of our presentation when we are speaking publicly. Please know that we only state the facts when we are speaking to the general public. It is very important for us that there be no misinformation, no misunderstandings, or no rumors on this bill proposal. The second document, actually, let me read that document for you so that we are very clear on what it is that we're presenting to the general public. And we begin. Important information required to obtain a driver's registration card. The information required to obtain a driving card in the state of Indiana. Number one, only eligible individuals will be able to apply for this card. It is very important that each individual meet all the requirements to obtain one. The individual will be required to be living in the state of Indiana for a minimum of 1 year or more to be eligible to apply. The individual will have to provide documentation as proof of paying taxes in the state of Indiana. Some of these individuals can apply for what's called an individual taxpayer's identification number, which is also known as an I-10. The I-10 can be obtained through the Internal Revenue Service as a method of paying taxes. It's very possible that these individuals will also be fingerprinted. All individuals applying for a driver's card will need to study the regulations, the signs, the traffic signals, and they will need to take and pass a written exam. All individuals will also have to take an actual driving test with a BMV instructor. The card is valid for only 1 year, after which it is to be renewed again, and all of the required documentation must be submitted once again. Now, here's what's important. What is it that individuals cannot do with this card? It cannot be used for identification. It cannot be used to vote. It cannot be used to travel by airplane, and you cannot use it to travel to other states. There's one other component here. That card will not allow an individual to enter a federal building. The fifth document, well, let me find my letter here. The fifth document is a letter written by a young member of La Voz Unida, 17-year-old junior Loani Michelle Breve, wrote a letter to the mayor. I'll ask her to read it.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for giving us the privilege to be here with you this afternoon and speak to you about this issue that has impacted our community. The lack of driving privileges doesn't only affect our Hispanic community, but the community as a whole. It is known that to survive, you need water, food, air, and shelter. If someone is not able to operate a vehicle, how are they supposed to go out and supply food for themselves or their families? They can walk. Well, walking with excessive heat or cold is not a great option. Our community comes into play in this. How is the economy supposed to increase if people don't go out to stores or businesses due to the lack of driving privileges? When it comes to education, we are very aware and fortunate to have school buses that serve as transportation, but a lot of parents don't send their kids on buses. Why? Bullying, racism, if you're too close to your designated school, you cannot have a bus, etc. I, in fact, got bullied once and I wasn't able to defend myself. Our community and country itself are so big on preparing this generation to be the next leaders. But if due to the lack of driving privileges, students can't get to school and get proper education, what will happen to our generation? One more key point I would like to address. When I was born in this country, I was 2 years old when my parents decided to go back to Honduras because to their understanding, this wasn't their country. While being in Honduras, my mom and I got kidnapped. My parents were forced to come back to the United States, and it has been a hard process to be legal in the country. Maybe my words don't matter at all, but I guarantee you that after God, my parents are the example I want to follow, because they are people that honor God over everything, and they are people that are filled with integrity. And I know there are more people like them that want to respect this country, community, and its laws. Thank you once again, and we hope you're able to support this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Finally, at the end of the packet are 6 approved resolutions for you to review. The first one, South Bend, population of 104,000 residents. Goshen, 35,000 residents. East Chicago, 26,000 residents. Hammond, 77,000 residents. Plymouth, 10,000. And Elkhart, 54,000. And you probably heard when I announced to the crowd that the city of Logansport has just approved a resolution in favor of this, and Logansport has 18,000. Obviously, we want you guys to give us the same approval, and we figure, I think Warsaw has about 16,000. Next Monday evening, we'll be meeting once again with the town of Bremen. That only counts with 4,000, but there's a tremendous amount of Hispanics in that community, and we're hoping that they too will support us. With your permission, I would like to make a statement on behalf of La Voz Unida in Spanish. Somos La Voz Unida de Plymouth, una organización que lucha en un sentido de paz y respeto hacia las personas, pidiendo y no exigiendo a las autoridades correspondientes con la misma necesidad latente que une a las diferentes organizaciones. We are La Voz Unida from Plymouth, an organization that battles, in a sense, with peace and respect towards other people, asking and never mandating of the corresponding authorities. We have the same quiet needs as other organizations that unite us all. In closing, we want to give you our most heartfelt and sincerest gratitude for allowing us this time to bring this matter to your attention. We appreciate you as leaders, and we want you to know that we as La Voz Unida, we will continue to do God's work for our community. Thank you very much.
Ed, you want to stay up in case we have some questions? The first thing I just wanted to ask, just for clarification, this driving privilege card is not an Indiana driver's license. It is separate from an Indiana driver's license.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
As a matter of fact, Mayor, that's a great question. There's been some discussion because I think it's a little bit of a concern down in Indianapolis that there will be some confusion. We're very careful with law enforcement as to how we're going to handle this type of a privilege. And so they're talking about maybe changing the shape of the card. There was talk of possibly being round, hexagon, or like a permit, you know, that it's different than a driver's license. So there's a lot of components that are still up in the air, but yes, it is completely different. There may even be a watermark on there that simply says for driving privileges only.
Can you talk also a little bit about maintaining financial responsibility as well?
Yes. So one of the largest components, and again, when we speak to the general public, this is very key to us. because as we're talking about, no PLPD will be allowed with this driving privilege card. You must carry full coverage insurance. That's it. That's the only way to make this thing work. No matter what vehicle you have, you will finance, not finance, it doesn't matter. You must carry full coverage insurance. Now, one of the things that's important when we start talking about a driver with history, maybe 0 accidents, 0 tickets, you know, your policy rates really drop because you're a no-risk driver. Anyone that obtains the driving privilege card will begin as though they were a 16-year-old kid just coming out of driver's ed. So they will have to pay full tilt for an insurance policy. That's just the way it's going to be. Now, what does that mean for us? Because now there's more money in the pool for the insurance companies, and what the movers and the shakers have said is our average rates will drop by, I think, $25 or $30. It's not a lot, but it's still something. So there'll be a benefit from kind of a byproduct of that.
Ed's prepared a pretty significant document here. He's been very persistent on coming to visit me and making sure we follow up. And we've looked at this. I really want to give you all a chance to ask any questions you have about the program. After we get through this tonight, then we will be preparing potentially a resolution for your consideration. I want you to go to the South Bend resolution that's in your packet and just go to the second page. Actually, the Goshen resolution would be fine. I'm sorry, that's one I had pulled up. All of these resolutions have basically the same components right at the end. The Goshen Common Council hereby endorses and urges passage of state legislation to provide a pathway for undocumented Indiana residents to be able to obtain a driver's card. The Goshen Common Council also hereby endorses and urges passage of state legislation to provide prerequisites to obtaining a driving card, such as training, certification, and insurance. Those two components are in every one of these resolutions that I've seen, and that's the essential core of the resolution. What we're asking you to do is potentially pass a resolution that lets the state, lets those sponsors and those members of the state legislature understand how important that is to our community. So that's kind of the end game here. But tonight, Ed has come prepared, and I think you all have had a chance to look at some of this. I'm sure you've got some questions, so I'd ask you to, while Ed's here, and anyone else who has a question, certainly it's time now.
Mayor, may I say one other thing?
Sure.
I don't want to break the norm because I know that you guys probably get into a routine of how you typically conduct your business, and with all due respect, by you guys taking a vote tonight and affirming that you are in support of this, you will be helping us on the floor tomorrow morning. Senator Kreider, who is the vice chair on this committee, has already informed the other members that he wants to take this to vote in the morning. And so you'll notice that Elkhart's is not signed. The reason, if you'll remember what happened to Mayor Roberson's brother, we were right in the middle of this when that took place, and that is the reason Elkhart's is not signed. But it's a very good a component for us to use as ammunition, saying that, again, a great city like Warsaw, the orthopedic capital of the world, is in favor of this. Look at our people. Look at the people that are here for you to stand up and say, care for us. We want you guys to help us with this resolution. And again, I don't want to overstep. I know that you guys do things a certain way, but
I think what we'll do is when we're done with our discussion, I'll just ask for a straw poll if we should go ahead with the resolution. And I think that would give indication where we stand. But again, let's get back to the questions. I don't want to get too far ahead.
So I'm Diane Quantz, and I'm the city representative to the Diversity Council for OrthoWorks. And so I know that this is a concern not only for our not only Hispanic residents, because this would also affect other immigrants that we have here. And we do have a number of other populations here whose maybe a family member is here legally with a card to work, but other people come over and then they just stay. And they're really running the household so that the worker can provide the income. So it's more than just the Hispanic population. So I think that's important to point out, because we're very glad that you're here. But, you know, we also have a large Indian community, we have a large Asian community here, and it would affect them as well. And my question is just more of a personal question, having worked with EL in the school system. Have you thought about, or do you already have plans to have some assistance for people so that when they want to study for the driver's test, that they're able to get help, just like, you know, we have bilingual GED help. Is there any plan in place to help them, to help everybody so that they understand clearly what the rules and the, you know, of the road are and how everything would work together?
Right. That's a great question. I actually thought, Diane, that there was only 2 different languages for the BMV to pass the written exam. There's actually 20.
Right.
There's 20 different languages out there and that just tells you how diverse Indiana is. As I said, we presented in Logansport. Logansport has Tyson, and they have, according to Mayor Chris down there, they have probably 40 different communities just in Logansport. So we have looked up, you Google everything these days. So we know for a fact that the driving manual is in Spanish. There's even some cliff notes. There's some videos that kind of help you understand a little better. You know, just like when we were younger, you know, we wanted to pass the test.
Right.
I think one of the tricks really behind it is, and this is where La Voz Unida is coming in with the communities, is to teach them how to drive safely. And abide by the laws of the road, understand the signs and signals, understand the risks if you get pulled over by a policeman. There's no reason to run. You know, this card really is, now, I should say this, the lawmakers, do not want us to use this as an identification card.
Right.
Okay? The reason behind it is because they are afraid that TSA or whomever at an airport is going to assume that this is valid and allow someone to enter, you know, an airplane. And we learned that from 9/11. So this is what they're trying to deter, is that kind of risk. So, but to answer your question, yes. The exam is one, the written exam is one, but now we need to work on the driving.
Right,
and
'cause
exactly, you know, what it takes to do that.
Right, because if they're with a driving instructor, they're either going to have to be bilingual enough to understand what they want them to do, or, you know, we're going to have to employ bilingual instructors. But I mean, I see it as a safety definitely issue, but I also see it as an educational issue. And that's just from my perspective and my background, and I think it's a very important one to becoming just a better citizen, a better contributing member of the community in which you live, to be able to understand and feel comfortable and feel safe. And I understand that this is a big issue of safety, and it's really what causes a lot of the problems when there is a traffic stop, is that feeling of fear, so.
And if I could take the opportunity, I'd given you a packet, Mayor. So Plymouth, Goshen, Elkhart, South Bend, we have what's called an identification card. South Bend has a terrific organization, goes by the name of La Casa de Amistad, the House of Friendship. And these folks have been fantastic in investing in what it takes to produce these cards. So the advantages, as a matter of fact, there was a young lady that asked me, why doesn't Warsaw have an identification card? So we take extreme measures to make sure we reach out to the pharmacies, to the clinics, to the schools, to the libraries, to wherever these folks need to be. you know, their kids have a program, they can't go into the schools these days because there's no form of identification. So if the state legislation is not going to allow us to use this as an identification, then I would implore you to please allow us to come back and speak on that topic, which is so important for our community. Can you imagine going to the doctor, he writes you a prescription, but you can't fill it? And so, you know, CVS is accepted, and Walgreens, Kroger's, Walmart, and now they can safely go up and get the prescription filled for their child. They can get a library card. For the first time, go in and rent DVDs or books, or, you know, for us, it's all about educating folks and taking them to the next level. You know, we want them to speak English. We want to speak English, but we want to be able to use the resources that are available for us, and oftentimes we just can't. So the identification card program, we'd love to come talk to you guys about it.
Other questions?
I just have one question. The card's valid for a year. Now, do they have to actually take a written and a driving test every year?
No,
Okay.
it's just like us.
Okay,
So, you know, our license, I think, every 5 years, is that right?
okay.
So I think if you surpass that, you know, now you're going to have to take the written, you're going to have to take the driving again.
Okay.
Because now it's completely expired. But no, they will come back in. And, you know, Cindy, that's a great question. And the reason that's a great question is because we don't take the time to really analyze that. I just took a gentleman to go get his driver's license. I put a tag of $25 on it, but it's actually $17.50 to get a driver's license.
Yeah.
Well, my license is good for 5 years. This is only good for 1. And it's very possible that the state legislators are gonna say, we're gonna put a number of $50 on this, times 5, or $100 times 5. So, you know, you gotta really put into this to qualify for this privilege card.
I just thought it would be very cumbersome if they had to go back and take a test
No,
and driving and
just like
everything.
what we do.
Yeah, so related to that, what we do, my experience every 5 years, that's what would happen when I go to the BMV.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I should also mention that, you know, when we met in the summer within the legislative committee, the State Chamber of Commerce was there in full support of this. The BMV spoke on this. They're preparing, the vetting is huge. I don't know if you guys know anybody that's tried to go in there and get a driver's license with not the proper documents. They will run you through the ringer. So there's no better organization to vet, you know, this type of a program than the BMV. In addition to that, they spoke that the initial investment just to get the program kicked off, $1.2 million. Training, software, the material costs. So it's up there. And I think that's one of the reasons why $50 or $100 is being tossed around to be able to justify it.
Okay.
So,
Others?
questions?
Yeah, I'm sure that you're familiar with our system of getting a driver's license. At 15, you can get a learner's permit, and then if you practice your driving, then you take the full test. When you're 16, you take a driving test. Has anything like that been thought of as far as a learner's permit? Otherwise, you know, how do you learn the driving skills without, you know, legally, without
Well,
being able to drive on the road?
A little bit of the question that Diane had, you know, was, how is it that we're able to practice? I just took a gentleman the other day to the local high school, and that's the way we did it when I was a kid. And these are the same types of skills that we will be training people on. What we're being very, very cautious on, Jack, is telling people this is what you need to start doing. So it's hands off of that kind of stuff, but we're already planning on how are we going to help these folks so that when this becomes law, we don't have, you know, 1 million people walking into the B&B. That's just not feasible. So that's why it's so important when we speak publicly. These are the things that are coming. You better be prepared. Don't think that you just walk up and get a driving privilege card. That's not going to happen.
And a quick question, is there something on the driver's privilege card that states that this is not to be used for those certain identification
Right, and
purposes.
so that's what I'd said earlier. The discussion is, the BMV's discussion, that they propose a watermark on this card that clearly states driving privileges only.
Okay,
That way, this individual walks up to Midway Airport and produces this, that is no good here.
right.
So, we're doing everything we can as partners to try and prevent something horrific.
So, and I also had a chance to talk to our police department this afternoon, to just find out locally, what kind of a concern and an issue it is. And it obviously is a very real concern and issue in our community. The chief actually texted me and told me that the police department as an organization, or as a group, I should say, is in support of this. So
Yeah. And that's huge.
Yeah.
When we're.
they're dealing with it. They're dealing with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, others.
I missed it. You said to vote tomorrow. The bill is in the Senate only, and it's in committee. What's the status of the
So
bill?
right now, it's only in the investigative committee.
Investigating.
Tomorrow will be, according to Senator Kreider, will be put to a vote.
No vote to get it out onto the floor.
Correct.
Right now, it's in committee.
Standing committee.
It's in Department of Homeland Security and Transportation Committee.
Right. We actually have a gal that's going to give testimony
Testify.
tomorrow in Indianapolis, so, and again, Senator Kreider that's fine, bring them in, but we're putting this to a vote.
Yeah.
So that's progress for us.
And as that works, if that gets out of the Senate, then it has to go to the House.
Yeah.
I believe there's a bill in the House as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been put into committee or not, assigned to a committee, but the Senate bill, it sounds like, is going to get out onto the floor.
Yeah, this one's just a little different. That's usually how it works.
Yes.
So we have on this investigative committee, actually senators and representatives working together so that you kind of do it in one hit. Goes to the Senate, goes to the House, but normally that's the way it would work.
Yep.
So they're kind of circumventing this, I think because they've heard it for years now.
I believe last year, can you give the history of this bill last year? I know it's not the same bill, but did it fail on the floor, or did it not even get out of committee?
So I think one of the things, Mayor, that we've not done a very good job of in the past is coming to folks like you, to where the real work happens. And we focused on, going down and speaking at the State House in the halls, instead of sitting down with an actual legislator. We're only talking about 150 of them, 50 senators and 100 representatives. That's who's voting here. And so I think in the past, that's where we failed, is to really make those impacts. Because if your senator learned that you support this, what do you think he's gonna say or she's gonna say?
Sure.
I need to vote in favor of this because my community, my constituents are saying they're in favor.
Right.
So this is where we're coming down to folks like yourselves that really understand us. We see the community here in a huge volume where, our senators, they're looking at everything. So I think that's where the difference lies.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? If there's not, I'd just like to ask for a consensus for me to go ahead and prepare a resolution for the next meeting.
I would think it'd be a good idea.
So is that a motion, or
Yeah. Yeah.
you're in favor of me
Oh, yes.
preparing
I would be in favor of
proposal,
you
all right?
preparing that. Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I'd ask you to raise your hands if you're in favor of me preparing a proposal to be, a resolution to be considered at our next meeting. All in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, there you have it.
Could I say something? Oh, would you guys mind if you spoke?
You can come up, but we've got a huge agenda tonight. Go ahead.
My name is David. I went to school here. I graduated. She was my counselor. But these people, are asking you to help them, or kind of put in your help for this thing to go through. But at the same time, I want these people to know that if they're asking for you to stand up for them, then as a community, we need to do some changes on ourselves as well. So, because we're asking you to stand up for us, but what's the exchange that we're gonna be willing to do? So, like for me, I didn't go to any of the marches that they did for DACA, which that's what I have. So, even though I grew up with not having even when I graduated high school, I didn't have a privilege to have a driver's license, and it's just been 6 years that I had that privilege. And I stay under the radar, follow the law and everything. But as my Hispanic and from the culture that I come from, I know that sometimes we kind of like maybe party a little too hard sometimes. So if like a community be coming up for you guys to stand up, then I just want them to realize that, hey, we're coming to ask you guys to help us. So we gotta keep in mind that we gotta put, not to let you guys down. Because if you give us that privilege and then out of nowhere, more accidents or, let's say more of a out of control situation come out, then what was the purpose of us coming together for this kind of, for this privilege. But I just want and like learning wise, I have a couple aunts, that they're not very bilingual yet, and that's on me for not teaching them, and at the same time it's on them because they've been here for a while. So I think most of everybody here has been here for at least 10 years, which that should be no excuse for us to know English. So if everybody here spoke English, then the only problem would be for someone to help us pass that, for the state to pass the law or something. It would be more similar, just knowing that as a immigrant, we're trying to, do our part to make our community, Goshen, South Bend, wherever you live, to be even a better place than what it is. So, but that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Aceptaron la resolución en Warsaw.
You're welcome. Ed, you're all invited to stay if you want to hang around for another couple hours,
Although you're making it awfully hot.
or you can leave. You're welcome. I'm going to take a 5-minute recess so we can kind of get ready for our next presentation. But thank you all for coming tonight.
Thanks for coming.
Good luck with everything.
Hey, how you doing?
Things that we would like to see on the car.
Thanks for coming.
But all we can do is say, there should be
You guys are really good. You did a good job.
Yeah.
This is great.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Oh, my name.
What's your name?
Ed Rodriguez knows how to
lost
get
mine.
going. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was.
Yes, sir.
Thanks so much. Where is he Oh, he did say that.
Yeah. All right, I gotta get.
He should run for state.
What grade are you? Thinking the same thing.
8th grade?
Maybe too long until you're ready for
Yeah.
Oh, you are so welcome. I hope this all goes through. Thanks a lot, Bob. No, I'm her neighbor and best friend. I take care of her.
Thanks for sharing.
That's awesome.
So much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As well.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen.
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe for many years now, first time we know something.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, loud and clear, loud and clear. Thank you. Yeah, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Hey, you know Brian Peterson? He said, I'm never. Hey, thanks a lot. Thank you. Hey, you hear me? You hear me? Thanks for coming. Never letting her down. So you need Primo, you call me and I'll remind you.
You're welcome.
Don't have to write a card.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, we have other business.
Her brother is
Unfortunately.
Hey, thank you. I had no idea.
I didn't know
No
that.
idea.
great.
I had no idea.
What you were just talking about there? What did you have to go through to kind of sit something?
Oh, okay, somebody will
Right?
So we have to find a way,
Got to go all the way around to get it done, don't you?
yeah. So at least we learn how to cope, you know, how insurance.
Over there. We're getting there. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And the anxiety.
He was,
That's why you're here, right?
So those poor kids got to see government in action.
Thank you.
It's so boring when they come.
thank you. You too.
Thanks a lot.
Just take it and I'll hit it.
Yes. It's interesting, you know, we don't think about.
Okay, let's go.
Hey.
Hey, Spalding, we're not done.
See that.
Hey, Dan, we're not done.
Yeah, they'll have to.
Okay.
They're baby.
Your mouth full. You can't stay, you don't get your name on it.
All right, let's get started. Dustin, you got a tough act to follow.
Yeah, of all nights, I'm not near as gifted as speaker as Mr. Rodriguez.
Mr. Rodriguez.
But we'll move forward here. Just kind of wanted to give an overview for the council on 2022, just kind of a looking back of what we were able to accomplish. 2022 was kind of a tough year. Prior to mid-year raises and salary increases that you helped us with. We were losing employees to the private sector. Training was a constant process for our team to grow back. Supply shortages, cost of materials was high, and things were hard to get. So there were some real struggles there. But we'll go through the next slide. So what we did, we're able to accomplish and move forward with. So with our contracted crack seal, we brought a company in just due to traffic control issues to do Ranch Road, J. Lynn Street, Provident, Frontage Road, Winona Avenue, as well as East Lake Drive. Click down to the next one as well. Crack seal of our city staffs during the months of May, June, and July consisted of over 50 different street segments, including several housing subdivisions. Crack sealing is one of the most valuable preservation tools that we use, keep moisture out of our streets, preventing significant damage. All in all, over $87,000 was spent crack sealing our roads in 2022. Move over to the next slide with microsurfacing. Out in District 1, Cook Street was microsurfaced, as well as Lydia Drive out in Patterson Place Addition. McClellan Country Club Road from Pope down to the bridge, Ranch Road from Fisher Avenue down to the railroad tracks, West Street in District 4, and Sheldon Street out in District 5. There were $162,000 worth of microsurfacing to improve our roadways. Also, 2022, we were awarded the Community Crossings Grant. Lindbergh Drive was a full reconstruction project. That's consisted of new subgrade treatment, stormwater system, new curbs, new sidewalks, with green space separation, new asphalt, as well as mailboxes even. That project was $1.2 million, just over. The city was awarded $443,658, based off the 50-50 match fund of the original engineering estimate. So paving completed by our city staff. This was our third season with our brand new paver that you guys allowed us to get. So North Bronson Street, we paved from Fort Wayne to Sheridan Street, South Scott Street, South Johnson Street, South Colfax, all from Center Street down to Jefferson headed south. West Point Drive from Ringneck Trail to Baker Street, West Baker from West Point back to Ranch Road, Jefferson Street into downtown district here from High to Detroit, both one-ways on each side of the tracks, as well as Lake to Indiana on both sides of the tracks, and Porter Street from Lake to Washington. Multiple alley segments were also paved all over. We shoot a goal to try to hit at least 10 different alleys all over the community and spread it out through districts. The skate park, we paved for the Parks Department as well as Pike Lake Campground. For a total of just over 4,000 tons of asphalt we paved in-house. This is really incredible. 13 road segments, all in all, and multiple alleys. Maycog came in to assist with our PASER ratings for 2022. Currently, Warsaw is approximately 103 center lane miles with approximately 236 total lane miles in Warsaw and 23 miles of alleys. Our PASER rating overall average for this year for 2022 was 5.8. That's up a little than the state average, but still not quite where we want to be. But all in all, for the struggles and the supply shortages and thing, very proud of what we were able to accomplish in 2022.
Dustin, not to put you on the spot, but I assume every year we have been increasing from the beginning. Do you remember what we might have started at?
With the first year I had Maycog come in, we were at a 5.6. So we're constantly getting better. This year, I mean, you'll see here as we go through the goals and stuff, we hope to be well over that 6 mark for 2023 when this comes out.
Thank you.
So moving on to 2023 and our road program that we have in store. Crack sealing right now, we've been planning significantly. 2022 we had over 17 different snow events. So far this year with storm reports, we've done 5. So we've had a lot more time to go through planning. We're working on doing some different grading on alley segments, sidewalk segments, those things that we're working on in-house. So over 30 different road segments are set to be crack sealed. As soon as weather is permissible and dries out a little bit, we'll get moving on that. And we'll go with approximately 5 contracted major road segments as well. Those are just due to traffic control. So 2023 micro surfacing, a lot of this work is already scheduled. We're adding a few more as we go along. But Shawnee Drive, Tecumseh, Heather Court, Highlander Drive, Mockingbird Lane, Lark Lane, Chickadee Lane. A lot of this is down in the Park Ridge subdivision and around that area. La Vista Drive, Dogwood Drive, Short Ridge Drive, Country Club Drive, Kelly Drive, Island View Drive, Eastview Drive, Lakeshore Drive, and Market Street from Detroit to Columbia will be others. Lilac Lane, Brubaker, Old Father, Wiedemann, Weber, Allward, Ellsworth, and Hitzer Street up off of Park Avenue will also be done. Our 2023 proposed paving projects, right now they include South High Street from Market down to Winona, South Indiana Street from Market to Winona as well, Warren Street out off of Old 30, Nuthatch Drive, Folly Street on the road back to Kelly Park, Yarnell Lane, South Wood Street, South Scott Street, South Maple Street, North Indiana Street from Center Street up to the entrance of the Central Park. Clark Street from Parker to McKinley, McKinley Street from Center to Hendricks, Bayview Drive, Bronson Street from Center to Smith, North Bay Drive East and North Bay Drive West. There's a lot of work to get done. One of our biggest goals is now that we've had our paver for 4 years, the skilled labor keeps getting better and better. Assistant Superintendent Joe is here. He's been working with a lot of employee development across the board, and this is something that we're going to take a lot of pride and set our goals to be able to run a setup crew as well as a paving crew coming behind. So a lot of work to get done, something we're very, very excited about this year on making a big difference. So our 2023 Community Crossings grant is our proposed paving for this grant if we shall receive it. We put in for this grant, the deadline was January 27th. We won't find out probably until April, but we're hopefully optimistic that we will receive this grant. So included in this grant was Center Street from Lake Street to Buffalo, including the southwest corner ADA ramp to be updated and fixed. Over the last 3 years, we've done a lot of the stoplights out here. The traffic signals have been updated. Now it's time that work is done to update the streets. They're in dire need. Also, Buffalo Street from Market to Main will be done, so our downtown events and stuff will have fresh asphalt and a fresh look. Ranch Road from the railroad tracks south to 200 South. Country Club Road from the bridge to the South Corporate city limits, and Jefferson Street from Bronson to Argonne now that the roundabout is done through there. Worked with our city engineer on this as far as the proposal, the engineering estimate. Again, the city of Warsaw is a 50-50 match grant, so this would be $816,118 was the engineering estimate. So we're seeking $408,000 of state funded funding to come into the city of Warsaw. Some more proposed work for 2023 is paint striping of multiple road segments after updating grading here in the spring. With our Elements software that we use for just about everything, from refuse collection to potholes to paving segments, this is something that we've recently added, an ability to grade the paint striping on the roads or the pavement markings to get a better assessment of what we need to focus on. So with the updated grades on those, we will be putting those out for bid here, in the early spring. Road signage updates, again, working with the GIS coordinator on this, of getting all our signage transferred over into Elements with the new reporting capability that we will be actually able to take the reflectometer readings off these signs and run reports to show us, a heck of a lot more accurately what needs to be replaced and when. So that's something that is still in the process of being added, but hopefully should be a takeoff for this year. Sidewalks and curb replacement, ADA updates. As we go through our projects and stuff, there'll be a lot of ADA replacements and updates, as well as sidewalks all over the community. We've got the ability now, again, with our training and stuff that we went through, of getting 2 to 3 crews. With the concrete shortage we faced last year and struggling to get it, we're doing more, at one time. So we may go through and do 2 or 3 sidewalks set up at once and do one day of pouring. With the skilled labor, that should not be an issue whatsoever. Again, alleys proposed, to pave approximately 10. The alleys were beat up with trash trucks for years, so getting through these, like I said, we have 23 miles of alleys within the city of Warsaw, so that's a huge update every year. Decorative street light project to be bid here hopefully in March is what our goal is to shoot that out for. We purchased the street lights last year towards the end of the year. They didn't come in time towards late fall. It was late November when we actually received them. So we're moving forward with that project now once weather breaks. April Awareness Month, one for refuse collection. A lot of times our issues with refuse collection are not so much of issues themselves. It's just an education thing of educating the public. So one of the things that we've wanted to come out with this year in April, we do during Earth Week, we give away the paper lawn bags to residents, but through the mayor's office, we'll put out several different, post the ordinance and allow them to see and try to make everybody aware of what is going on. So, last but certainly not least, our mission statement for this year. We've done a heck of a lot of team building over the last couple of weeks. We've got a great team down there at the street department on what we're trying to accomplish. We've went out of our way to kind of sit down with our staff and go through and let them take ownership on what they want to learn, where their skills want to be by the end of the year, and set goals. That's something that's been huge for us. And our mission statement that I proposed to the team is, that we are one team. This is one city. We have one goal, and that's to make a difference in our community. And that's what we're really going to strive for 2023. Try to make it quick.
Did a marvelous job. You'll be hearing about this all year. If you have any specific questions, you can ask them now, but I know we got a lot to do tonight. Any comments?
I would like to make a statement. How many lane miles again in the city?
103 center lane miles.
How many total though? Was it 200?
230, just over 236.
236, I just checked. To drive from right here to Chicago O'Hare Airport and then come back it's a big deal. 234 miles, okay? Just perspective there. 117 each way. So we have 2 more miles than from here to Chicago.
We got a lot of wide roads too. So.
I'm always shocked when I see those numbers.
I'd rather drive here than Chicago.
Just a comment, you're keeping that paver working hard. I hope you have a robust PM
Oh, yeah.
program.
Yeah, we have some of the best mechanic staff that money can buy. They do a phenomenal job. So hats off to them to keeping us running.
Also, Eric Hoffine from the street department has been busy updating our needs as far as signage or vacating different street signage and so forth. And so over the next few meetings, you'll probably be getting some ordinances to look at and review. But we're breaking it up into a couple different ones. So.
Yay.
Well, I think they've been doing a terrific job, and I'm sure that's what we'll see this year too. So,
Yeah,
thank you.
I want to say that I've noticed a huge difference since you moved your trash collection to just 4 days a week, and you have a day to really dedicate to these kind of things. And so I know it's like crazy busy on your 4 days. You're trying to pick up the trash and do other things, but then you've made excellent use of that extra day to get some of these other projects done, and I can see the difference.
Sure.
So thanks.
Thank you.
I think I'm gonna have to sit him down. His head's getting pretty big. Thanks, Dustin. Appreciate it. Okay, now that we're out of recognition of visitors, let's go into reports. The December fund report's in there. The cable franchise fee is in there, from Mediacom.
Yep.
A whopping $264. Lynn's put the investment report in. Lynn, we're up to yields of almost 5%, it looks
Yeah,
like.
the investment number 5 at the bottom was the investment that put us at 4.91, and we have another at 4.90. And we don't have another one due until next quarter, so that's why I did this report now. So you guys could have some more good news tonight after
Yep, that's a good move.
Dustin's presentation.
All right. Lynn, I don't know if this belongs in reports. I think it needs to probably go down into new business.
No, it's fine. You guys just need to acknowledge this.
Acknowledge it.
And the PO, the encumbered report.
All right, let's take them one at a time. I want you to raise your hand to acknowledge the request to cancel. There's, looks like 5 checks.
There's 5 checks with First Source and 3 with Northwest.
Oh, there you go.
And
So-
actually, the checks are voided automatically after 2 years, so we just have to do this.
So you're acknowledging that. So to acknowledge that, I'd ask you just to raise your hand. Okay, thank you. And then the same thing with the encumbered PO. This shows money that was carried from 2022 over to 2023.
And then it'll come back to you in June or July when these have been reduced, when we're doing our budget cycle for 24.
Remember, these are 2022 funds that have been PO'd over to this year that by contracts or other means that the clerk deems worthy.
Supplies.
All right.
That we're waiting for.
And I'd ask you to raise your hand if you would acknowledge those. Thank you. All right. With no unfinished business, let's move into new business. Item 1 was put on the agenda by error. There is no need to do that tonight. So that will be scratched from the agenda. What I'd like to do is call Jeremy, who's been waiting very patiently to talk about the ordinance for bonds for the Warsaw Parks District.
Yeah, much like my memo stated, obviously, it's kind of the first step for the common council is to be your first reading of bond ordinance that the Warsaw Parks Board initiated at their previous meeting. This is much like any redevelopment bond we would do, it's going to do the same process. The Parks Board, because they're appointed by you, don't have the authority by themselves, the people authority to approve the bond. There will be a Parks Board bond issue that has your 2 readings that will go forward right in the next council chamber, and then they would meet again in February to approve the final issue. So it's not to exceed 2.8 million, obviously it'll be under that, but just so that we don't have to do this 4 times, obviously this bond will get out to the banks. Be presented to you. So in order to keep them on track to have multiple public hearings, we usually have it a little higher than the bond issue would be. If you have any questions on that, that's the reason why. Public hearings will be held at the Parks Board meeting, their final meeting, they would approve that, their bond issue. If you have any questions on what you're doing tonight.
So this is an introduction. If you remember, what this bond is going to pay for is the new parks facility, the maintenance and offices. It was a BOT project, not to exceed 3.6 million. The city has paid down 1.4 million in cash. We knew that we were going to hit this point. The idea was we were going to potentially combine it into one bond with the street department building, but that's not going to be necessary for probably at least another year. So I had Baker Tilly do an impact, a tax impact, and they suggested having the park district issue a bond for the, again, 3.6 minus 1.4 is 2.2, and then there's about $200,000 roughly of issuance costs. So it's probably going to be about 2.4. But as Jeremy said, they always set it high, just because they don't want to be under. Then you got to go back and start all over again. Questions on that part of it? Jerry?
I guess I was thinking all this was taken care of 6 months ago or something like that, when we first voted to go ahead with that building.
Well, it had to be paid for somehow.
Yeah, but
And
I
and
thought
one
we already,
option was to go to bank. That's the thing the BOT allows you to do. But we found that, and according to Randy, the state legislature has made it a lot easier to issue bonds for these types of projects, to BOT projects. We found that we would save money going to a bond and not bank financing. Jeremy, any comments on that?
Yeah, just to go, so the DOT offers an opportunity, right? But that opportunity comes with a higher interest rate than a bond issue. Where we caught ourselves was knowing that we had multiple projects, were we going to be able to get one done and move into the other one? So there's two things we could have done. We could have financed this through a bank until we did the other bond issue. But looking at the bond issue that we're doing now, I think it's going for like 7 years.
8.
8 years. So it's an 8-year bond issue. By the time you calculate 2 more years in it, we're gonna end up with 6 years payment, so it just made sense from an interest rate standpoint to do the bond issue and get a cheaper rate than we would if we were going straight to the bank.
Yeah, I guess that maybe is what confused me a little bit, because I was thinking maybe, I didn't think we were going to do this at this time, that it was going to be maybe down the road combined with something else.
Well, we have to, when we take possession of the building, which will be, I believe, in March, middle of March, that's when, no matter what, the DOT requires that when it's transferred to the city has to have the financing arrangements done. So that's the purpose, and there was never any indication that would be any different. I will say that initially, I thought it was going to be private financed. I didn't anticipate a bond, but at the end of the day, the bond is giving us a much better rate, and it's just a more favorable way to go.
And so this will affect the 2024 taxes?
Yeah, it's probably about 2.5 cents for 8 years. The combined with the street department will be a 20-year bond. And I had the tax, and I've got copies of this tax analysis from Baker Tilly. The 20-year bond for the street department, and combined with the $2.4 million Parks District bond, will impact, I think it's 4.8 cents on the.
Yeah, it was just under 5.
It's just under 5 cents, and that's for both projects, once we get that all caught up. Remember, we dropped our tax rate about 6 cents this last year. So even in 2 years with that increase, we'd still be below what our tax rate was last year. We can't pay cash for these buildings. We paid what we could. We bought down the cost. But, you know, when you buy a new home, you don't pay cash. I don't think many of you pay cash for a home. And we paid approximately a third of it down with cash that was available. And the remainder has to be financed, be it through a bank or be it through the bond. And the bond was the more preferred way to go. But to answer your question, Cindy, it'll be on next year's tax rate. It'll be about a 2.5 cent impact on the tax rate. And then probably in 25, once the other bond comes up, I think it was 4.9 cents for both of those projects.
And the public hearing will be on February 21st at 5:15 in here. So if you would like to attend, otherwise I'll report back to you like I've done in the past as to what comments were made. But it'll be the day after our council meeting.
Our council meeting will be on the 21st.
Oh,
too.
that's right, it'll be on the 21st too. So actually, it'll be right before the council meeting, so I can give you input before we take the second vote on the ordinance as to what the public had to say. Or you can come early, or we can go to dinner together or something.
you buy it?
Yeah.
Cheers.
Can't talk business.
I know.
So you need a first reading motion?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that timetable was correct. Common Council adopts on March 20th, and then the Tuesday meeting, the Park and Rec Board holds a public hearing. So the council will consider it tonight, the 6th and the 20th, and then the Parks Board is the 21st.
February though, not March.
We don't have a meeting on the 20th. We have a meeting on the 21st.
20th is President's Day, so I don't know whether the city's,
You know, he's got that, can we have, I don't know if we can have their public hearing until it's approved by this body. I don't think the park board can consider it. Yep.
Yeah, typically, this body has to approve the issue.
Yeah,
You can do that two ways.
It's on the 21st.
This is the first reading, you could suspend the rules and approve it on second reading, or wait for the second.
I think Randy on his timetable did not anticipate the
President's
holiday, and that's why it was shown that way, but I'm almost positive it has to be approved before it can go. And then when it goes to Parks Board, it's a resolution, and it'll be considered in one with the public hearing on that, probably.
It's the same process that you do for redevelopment. Redevelopment board is appointed by the city council and the mayor, same with the park board. So the council has to approve it on the issue.
Before it goes to the park board. So we'll work through that. And we may have to move the park board meeting because I know they've got the sale of the bonds scheduled. So,
Yeah, we either have to move that park board meeting, like I said, we could approve it tonight.
yeah,
What are
I'm
the,
not pushing that.
yeah, what are the time constraints on this? I know, so they're planning on having the building done. I mean, and that's kind of what's pushing right now, right?
That's the transfer of the BOT.
Yeah.
I don't know, we don't have an exact date in March yet, do we, when they're,
We don't, and this can go as fast as they want, right? Other than, I don't know if they've advertised the park board meeting, they probably have.
I think we did advertise the public hearing for our next
You
Parks.
already have a date and a time advertised, we have to redo that date and time advertised.
It was scheduled for the 21st of February.
Yeah.
Because the second, typically, the council meets on that Monday, you obviously missed.
We'll have to we'll consult with Randy and figure out what the best thing is, unless you, and I'm
Wanna
not,
suspend
I'm
the
not
rules
proposing
and
you have to
vote
do that, but that would be an option. But I want to make sure you understand what we're doing here before we get into the timetable. I know there's been a few questions here.
Yeah, if you call Randy at first thing in the morning, there'd still be time to re-advertise that.
For the park board, yeah.
Yes, we just have to take it. I'm not saying it can't be done.
Have to re-advertise it. Okay, thank you. All right, further questions?
First step is approval on first reading.
Yes.
I move to approve on first reading ordinance number 2023-0201.
All right, there's a motion been made to approve ordinance 2023-0201 on first reading. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second by Jack. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Let the minutes reflect it. Passed 6-0, unanimous. If there is not a preference to suspend the rules, then we will move ahead and contact the bond attorney, make sure that that's the appropriate way to go about it, getting that Parks Board meeting rescheduled. That's just what we'll have to do.
Yes, they will have to reschedule this out.
Yep.
I don't like doing it on the same, but it is a unique situation, unanimous support. I wouldn't want to do it unless it was, all of you were comfortable, so. I mean,
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, I know, I don't really feel real comfortable doing it tonight.
then let's move ahead
Okay.
Yeah.
and we'll get it figured out. And I appreciate that. I
Yeah,
certainly
thanks,
understand
Cindy.
that.
I agree.
Yep.
Thanks, Cindy. Appreciate it.
I was no way pushing that, but
Right.
it was one path forward.
Yeah, for
Okay,
a public hearing, I think it has to be advertised 2 times, and the second, within at least 7 days of each other, with the second one being at least 3 days before the meeting. Does that sound right?
Cindy.
So,
Good. That's right. Yeah, I agree.
if they could get the ad in the paper tomorrow,
Good
then
point.
plenty of time, but I don't know I don't think the paper could get it placed tomorrow.
Well, and they have to make sure they can get a quorum at their park board.
Yeah, it can't be, but here's the thing, they meet at 5:15, it can't be. The option was approve it tonight, or we'll have to move that board meeting. We'll either have to go at their next meeting, but have to schedule a special meeting, because it can't be on the 21st, because the council meeting after.
the other option could be to meet on the 20th, and again, I'm not suggesting that, but that's a possibility. We'll give you some options, all right? We'll send options out once we determine what our options are. But I would mention that would be an option as well. Okay. All right, thank you. Item number 3 is ordinance 2023-0202. This is amending a police salary ordinance. I would just give a little bit of a preamble to this. We've got a job description that has changed over time. IT responsibilities have grown exponentially without a change in job description, and that's what's guiding this discussion tonight. So, Denny?
Yeah, so along with our police department getting up, their rating up, along with that comes a lot of extra IT work with all of the technology that we have in the cars, all the technology that the officers wear on them, and all the different technologies that they have to use for reports and videoing and everything else. And right now, we have one person that is down at the department that handles all of that. It's time now that we come up with a senior system administrator, and then looking at hiring a second system administrator to help with all those tasks. So it's long overdue. Our system administrator is overwhelmed, to say the least, and as I was doing the wage studies and things like that for this tonight, we were somewhat on the low side for all of the things that the system administrator was doing, because it wasn't in the job description when we did the wage study last year. So that's why we had to come back and try and get this right.
Questions?
So the job description, okay, I was a little confused at first. I think I understand it now. The description was basically written for one person that's employed at this point in time.
Correct.
And it was written many years ago.
It was 2016, I believe, was the last one that was presented to the employees.
So it was an update.
Having attended the Citizens Police Academy, I have seen that individual's work, and they do a lot of supervision already of everything that goes on in that department, but they weren't recognized at the supervisor level. So I've seen how many things, it's like, oh, that's going to go to this person, that's going to go to this person needs to do that, we need to wait for this person, we need to call, even a couple times when I was there, we need to call this person in because something went down, so they come in after hours to be responsible for something. So I've actually, this is a rare case that I've actually witnessed this person working, and can say that, yes, this person really does do all these things and more.
Right, and as I was studying, this was brought to my attention, and as I started looking into it, I didn't realize that we change every cell phone every 2 months. It has to be recycled because of the things that happen within the police department. I don't know exactly all the specifics of it.
The security.
But we swap out cell phones every 10 months, which means every cell phone has to be deleted, and the text stuff has to all be taken out and gone through, and then new phones programmed and given to the officers. So this, just that one task alone is a ton of work for one person. And then with all the stuff that goes in the cars and the body cams and keeping all that footage where they can have it available when they need it, it's a lot of stuff. It's a ton of work.
But we do plan on hiring someone else as an assistant.
Yes, Chief Whitaker and I will have to crunch budget numbers to make sure that we do it fiscally responsible, but definitely need a second grade manager.
And I believe that money is already in his budget. I mean, we won't be asking for more money for the police department. It'll just be redistributing the money that was already allocated to them. So that's something important to know too.
Now, is that a 35-hour week, 37 and a half?
This position here is 37 and a half.
30, okay, I didn't know whether time was out for lunch or.
The hourly wage that you see there equals about 75,000 a year at 37 and a half hours, which is median for a good person.
Yeah, it just concerns me, just, thinking about some of our department heads and maybe even elected officials and so forth, so.
No, absolutely, I understand that.
I think since we had our reorganization meetings with Baker Tilly and the IT Governance Committee, was able to look long and hard at our efforts. We've made leaps and bounds with our technology and how we're able to utilize it in each one of these departments. But boy, does it create costs. To go out and find a senior systems administrator, I'm not sure we could find one of the caliber we have for what we're paying. It's just a very difficult position to fill. It's in very high demand, but more importantly, it's so critical with the city server that we've got now, with all the work we do with our asset management program, and then never mind the public records and all the security that's required with PD. I just don't see this as that we have much choice. We fall way behind if we don't keep this up. Other questions?
Mayor, our tech team, I'm forgetting that, have they reviewed this, looked at it? Our oversight team,
They're not really involved in salaries and wages, but I'm sure that this job description it meets their approval.
It meets it, okay. Thank you.
And full disclosure, this individual is a member of the IT Governance Committee as well.
Okay.
So now is that stipend or whatever, is that
Built into
wrapped
that.
into that?
Yes.
Okay.
We did that a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't know in this case whether it was
Yep.
a part of that.
Good question.
And, having served on that wage task committee before, Roman numeral number 2 is one of the things that distinguishes this position because of the independent judgment that is required for the person knowing enough to modify the rules, instructions, and guidelines to properly address specific cases and circumstances. So that independent thinking is one of those OSHA things that makes a difference between levels of employees. So adding that in here is a key element.
Yeah, and I would, no qualms about the person that we have doing the job now, because I know a lot of on-the-job experience, and just down the road, if we were thinking to replace or something, if that person would leave, we're only requiring like a high school diploma or GED, we might want an associate in computer science or something like that. Yes,
So we can always add to it.
yes.
Don't want to take away.
Cindy, and that's a good point. One of the other outcomes of our study with Baker Tilly was we didn't want to get into position where we had one person, and if that person left, we were sunk. We need to have a systems individual
I was gonna bring
in
that up,
PD
yeah.
ready to go.
All your eggs in one basket.
And this was one of the situations where it just hit us square in the face that this was critical. Thanks, Josh. Didn't mean to steal your thunder.
Oh, that's all right. Most people do, that's why I don't say anything.
Used to it.
Is this particular person going to work specifically and exclusively with the police department? Or because they're a systems administrator, are they going to be able to dip their toes into the other departments and help them with issues?
90% of the time is going to be with the PD. So again, they're on the IT governance committee, and they help with that team. And they're going to have to be available to anybody who's got questions. Because
Okay.
they are,
Yeah,
until we get to the point where we have a city administrator,
okay,
you know, we have several folks that are out there now that are taking care of systems that are working together. But it's mainly through the governance committee, IT governance committee.
Josh, and you're making a great point. You know, the IT growth in the city has grown exponentially since we've started the committee, and it's going to continue. And I anticipate at some point, we're going to have someone, more than just one systems administrator. So, but thank you. That's the course, the trajectory we're on with information systems. It's, I don't have to tell you.
yeah, okay.
So, yeah, eventually we'll get to that point where we have a city administrator. That's already in a salary, in the salary ordinance.
Okay. My second question, follow-up then on that, is if we hire somebody to help underneath, would that then free this person up to potentially, and maybe not be the city administrator, but at least, you know, again, that's an awful lot of money to just be assigned specifically to the police department. I understand there's a lot of needs for them there, but there's a lot of needs for the other departments as well. We have a resource, I think we should utilize it to the best of our abilities.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important that this position is part of that governance committee to help with all the other departments.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think as this individual gets freed up, I mean, to give you an example, anytime one of the communication systems in one of our police cars goes down at any time of the day, you know, that individual goes out and makes sure that that's done correctly. I mean, there's just no time for that individual to dedicate.
Of course, right.
Their house and for them to drive.
And that's why we had to get
Wow.
this thing leveled up to where she doesn't have that responsibility.
Of course.
And I can see as she gets to that point where that may be spread across the city as well. You know, and again, things for you all to think about. This is all coming to roost, if you will. I know I thought at one point about having a separate IT department or some type of central services. And that's where that type of individual would fit in to our structure, if you will. Right now, it's a police department employee. They by far have the most sophisticated IT needs and demands, but that may not be like that for long. And we may have to change how we deliver IT in this city through a separate department. Not now, but I can see that down the road.
Yes, definitely something that we're already looking at through HR as far as new technologies come on board, how we can be able to.
Yep. So I'd ask you to consider, and this would be, I'd ask you to consider it tonight on first reading. Again, it would have to be, you'd have to have a second reading on it. You could suspend the rules, but I would totally leave that to your discretion. Are there any further questions? Denny, any final comments?
No, I think we have more. I think you guys see where the city's at, and you guys are seeing kind of how the world works. So the more technology we get, the more we're going to have to deal with times and get with. Unfortunately, the market for IT people right now is crazy, so you got to be able to keep up.
So if there's no other questions, I'd ask that you entertain ordinance 2023-0202.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance 2023-0202
On first reading.
on first reading.
Thank you, Diane. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, passes 5-1. All right, so we will consider on second reading ordinance 2023-0202 at our next meeting.
I'd like to say at least one thing. On the ordinance, it says it takes effect as of yesterday's payroll startage date for the next payroll. Do we want to change that so it'd be the payroll after this one, since it's going to be, the second reading will be after the meeting, or we can always play catch-up and pay what we didn't make on this payroll on the next payroll?
I would ask that you leave it as it is,
Okay.
but
I put that date on there because it was the closest date to the start of the pay period.
okay. All right. Thank you, Denny.
Yes, sir.
Any other matters to come before the council? Thank you all for your attention tonight. It was a pretty, I don't want to say it was very, very informative meeting. I think we made a good decision. I think that all the other things we've done tonight obviously are signs that it's going to be another busy year. Appreciate your time. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple of items here. One, and Cindy kind of touched on this previously. This past Wednesday, Traffic Commission reviewed a number of ordinances concerning traffic signs. We were presented with about 4 pages of signs which need to be addressed. The commission addressed about a third of them, which will be presented to the council in the near future. The rest of the items are still under review and will be brought to the council at a later date. We split them up in this manner to provide council time for consideration. And two, I personally want to give a shout out and a thank you to the emergency responders and the Warsaw Wayne Township Fire Department for their quick and professional response a week ago Sunday to my home. My wife, Teresa, broke her hip. She is now have a full hip replacement and is recovering at home. Their response is much appreciated, and I want to thank them.
Thank you, Jack. We hear a lot of those thank yous. Okay. Anybody else? Any comments from our guests tonight? How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
I'll put this quick for you guys, because I'm sure you're probably tired. But there's an issue of public safety that's come to my attention, and I noticed it last week.
I'm sorry, could you just state your name for everyone?
Yes. I'm Nate Callipin, by the way.
Thank you. Thanks, Nate.
So with the snow we received about 2 weeks ago and last week, and then it melting and then freezing again, I noticed that a large majority of our sidewalks aren't really shoveled or plowed or anything. I know there's an ordinance for that requires people to do that, but it's not followed by the majority of residents, the majority of companies, even a lot of city-owned sidewalks and state-owned sidewalks. My concern especially is with, high traffic, car traffic areas. So along 15 on Detroit Street, along Center Street, where maybe there isn't a whole lot of barriers between pedestrians and traffic. These sidewalks are pretty slick. They had up to like 4 inches of ice on them last week. I just don't want someone to fall into them and get hurt or killed. I'm sure you guys don't want that either. Just as status quo is right now, it's just not working, and I think we need to come up with a solution. If we don't, I think that's pretty irresponsible of us. I'm willing to help any way I can, but I just wanted that to come to you guys, your guys' attention.
All right, thank you.
Oh, we do have ordinances that say that we're supposed to be keeping those sidewalks clean. I know personally that I go out and clean about a half a dozen of them in my area. I got my snow blower. Once I get it going, it doesn't stop for a while.
Yeah, I know there's ordinances on the book. I don't think they're enforced most likely. In most cases, it's taking people, multiple days or any time being done at all. And I'm just concerned with people's safety for when it doesn't get done. I know that it's hard for some people to do it. I understand that. Whatever solution's going to have to be comprehensive.
I know our Parks Department comes up and sweeps the sidewalks in the downtown area as they can, keep up with it. I also know the street department handles the Market Street corridor trail there. I know we can't do all the streets, and you're right, it's an ordinance, and it's up to individuals to shovel in front of their properties. I've seen communities put out pleas for that, for folks to shovel, and we certainly can remind folks to do that. I totally agree with you. There's especially along busy roads, it's tough to get it done when you've got plows, state plows, coming through and throwing snow back on those streets. It's an unfortunate situation. I know folks do as best they can. I think enforcement would be pretty difficult.
Maybe along that line too, and I don't know if Dustin, if you would look into this or who, but along Sunset, I think that sidewalk is probably supposed to be maintained by the railroad. But, I mean, nobody maintains that sidewalk, and people are, frequently in the street. And I know, Larry, you guys used to come down and try to do it from the Parks Department, but now you're busy doing the downtown. So that is one where it's frequently traveled and people are walking in the street. So I don't
Well, I know we work with the schools to get Husky Trail along there so that those kids can get from the apartment up to the school. I know we do 300 North as well to get the kids from up in around 15, all those homes up that way, down to Madison School. So the city collaborates with the schools to do that as well. So we're doing the yeoman's share of the work, or a lot of work on those particular areas. And we've still got alleys and streets. You heard tonight, 200 some miles of road to get cleared for emergency traffic. So I just think I'm sure you're not the first to be concerned about. We're all concerned about it. Hopefully, you bring this up, we'll get people to understand how important it is. And thank you.
I will say that I like the Parks Department for the senior citizens, which I feel I'm probably one, but they come and plow out the driveways for them if they need it, and they call them and ask them to come on, they'll come out and do it. And I know I got a couple neighbors that they come out and take care of their driveway every time it snows.
I have to give kudos to the park department too, because when we had some of the bad weather downtown, they were coming through 2-3 times a day, not just once, which is, I think, all they were really required to do. So, and that's very, very helpful.
Any other? All right, Nate, thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else? How about a motion to adjourn?
I'll move we adjourn.
Thanks,
Second.
Jack.
Does Dana still do, one time he did some public service announcements on the radio. I don't know if he does, he was doing them on WIOE or something. And I don't know whether WIOE would even let us do some.
I think they do.
Yeah. 'Cause-
I'll have Stacy.
I know what he's talking about, down by McDonald's and then south down by the station.